of the major sources of anxiety for humans, and honestly for any creatures with a similar nervous system, is uncertainty. It's the fear of the unknown. And if we know that, then the solution isn't to magically erase uncertainty, because that is impossible. The solution is learning how to accept that. Accept what? A, uncertainty exists, and B, it is not awful that it exists, it's just inconvenient. Right? It exists. Yes, that everybody knows. B, this is the part that's causing anxiety, is that we think it's awful. But what I'm saying is it's not awful. It's just inconvenient. Right? So just take a moment and think about that, my friend, because when we were born, right, everything was uncertain. We well, we didn't know our name. I mean, we didn't know our name. I mean, I certainly didn't. Our parents, we didn't know them. Our family, we didn't know them. Or what the world had in store for us, we didn't know that. And yet here we are. So we may not have handled everything perfectly up to this point in our lives, but the fact remains that we exist right now. Well, I hope that while you're watching it, you're existing. And if you do, then that proves that you've dealt with uncertainty in your past. And if you've dealt with uncertainty in your past, it means you can do it again, right? Right? So here's where the real shift happens, okay? Instead of seeing uncertainty as unacceptable, we see it as unavoidable. But, and this is a big but, and no pun intended, it is manageable, okay? So it is unacceptable, right? To us, often, uncertainty, but it's in reality, it is unavoidable, and it is manageable, right? So instead of seeing it as just, okay, I can't take this, I can't handle this, I can't accept this uncertainty, this not knowing, this feeling is awful and horrible and blah, 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 right? That's our normal way of doing things. Instead, we start to find a way to shift to, well, like, I really don't like it. And, but you know what? I can deal with it. I can manage it, right? And I'm not saying that you have to like uncertainty. That would be unreasonable. What I'm saying is we don't need to fight reality either, right? Because when we stop looking at uncertainty and the feeling of the unknown as a disaster, and rather to start to shift into seeing it as just one more thing to navigate, now the anxiety loses its grip on us, right? So let's be real. All right. Our minds love to catastrophize, right? They love to awfulize, right? We take a simple, I don't know what's coming next, and turn it into everything is doomed, right? And so in therapy, we call that awfulizing or catastrophizing or magnifying, right? And so the thing is that we can train ourselves to think differently. And when we change how we think, we change how we feel, right? And that's the biggest takeaway of all this approach to therapy that we call cognitive therapy, or it goes under many, many names. The first sentence in the Dhammapada, the one of the sacred texts of Buddhism, starts with that same phrasing. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus have spoken to that, and many other religious traditions, I'm sure, have ideas of that nature, that it is ultimately our minds that shape our reality. And yes, the rest of the world contributes, but largely it's our minds that, and how they interpret the world is what creates our reality and our feelings. Okay. So how do we do this, right? What are the strategies? So number one, we got to practice, 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 practice. That's a very big part of this with anything. We got to practice reminding ourselves, you know, I don't have to like the uncertainty, but I can accept it. I can accept it. Okay. Two, when anxiety starts to kick in and you notice those similar feelings of like the different physical signatures of anxiety, we ask ourselves, why must I insist that uncertainty not exist? What if I just let it be, right? It is even happens in social situations. You're having a conversation with someone and it dies, and in the end, there is that little lull, and often people report the anxiety going up. And I've noticed that too when the conversation comes to an end. And it could be just a wonderful, beautiful conversation, but there is this sudden uncertainty brewing out of the abyss and the oblivion of reality, and suddenly we think it's awful, but like stop right there and ask yourself, why must it be the case that uncertainty not exist? What if I just let it be? What if I'm sure that many things that exist that you don't like or find inconvenient, we don't go out trying to kill them all. We just let it be, right? And that's a big step, right? And it goes back to the first step, which is to remind yourself that's yes, uncertainty exists. Yes, I don't like it. But yes, also, I don't have to insist that it must not exist. I can accept it, right? And three, we can take small actions despite the fear that we feel, because confidence comes from doing and not just thinking. Obviously, thinking is massive, changing your philosophy of life, that uncertainty is allowed to exist and there's no universal law against uncertainty. And in fact, uncertainty is woven into the fabric of reality. And no, it's not awful, it's just inconvenient. And changing that philosophy is very important. But then actually acting on that philosophy and showing your brain, look, I can do this. Previously you thought it's awful to start a conversation and to smile to a stranger, or to be okay with uncertainty. You thought all those things were awful, but look, now I'm doing things that will show you that it's not awful. I can smile at a stranger. I can deal with these moments of dread, or waiting in the line, waiting for my coffee, not scrolling all the time and trying to distract myself, and being okay with uncertainty, right? And it's possible. It's not impossible. So doing that, right? And there's more nuance to that and subtleties, and obviously in therapy we explore that with each individual, but also, number four, I guess, besides just practicing reminding yourself that you can deal with certain uncertainty, that you need not insist that uncertainty not exist, and that you can take action. Number four, I think you can also try and notice when your mind starts to catastrophize. So instead of spiraling, just remind yourself, hey, buddy, uncertainty is not awful. It's just inconvenient. It's not awful. It's not the most horrible, terrible thing. It's just awful. It's not awful. It's inconvenient. I don't like it, and that's okay, right? Just because I don't like something doesn't mean it does not have to exist at all, right? So that would be very, very unreasonable stance. And then, so a lot of it is like using our faculty of reason to help ourselves out of these primitive emotional states that are there to help us. Anxiety is a great thing. It's a signal that, like there's something off, or there's something here that's maybe some danger here, right? But at the same time, it misfires when we start saying all uncertainty is awful, right? So again, in summary, what I'm saying, my friends, is this whole process of overcoming our anxieties takes practice, it takes repetition, and a whole lot of self-talk. But it works. It does not bring your anxiety to zero forever. In fact, anxiety will continue to exist because uncertainty will continue to exist. But your mind no longer awfulizes and catastrophizes and thinks that it's the worst thing ever because there's a lull in a conversation, or because something's not going. I don't know what's going to happen to me in the future, or oh my God, it's going to be this, or oh, it's going to be horrible. All those things can still be. Uncertainty can still exist, and we need not think it's horrible. So I want to know, what's your experience with uncertainty? Have you, my friends, found a way to handle it? Or does it still throws you out for a loop. So drop a comment. Love to hear how you're navigating this. And until next time, catch you later.